Mom is pressuring me to marry my creepy stepbrother, cover his debts, have his baby, and now she's lying about the inheritance and harassing me at work. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I have an older stepbrother, Chris, who is 42 now. Honestly, he's been a total nightmare ever since our parents got married. Let me rewind and fill you in a bit. Our parents tied the knot when I was just 4 years old, and Chris was already 17. Both of them had lost their spouses before they found each other. After their wedding, we all moved to the US because my mom had American citizenship through her marriage. I was actually born in the US, but after my dad passed away when I was just a year old, my mom and I moved back to Colombia. My stepfather got his residency through the marriage, and since Chris was still a minor, he did too. From day one, Chris wasn't thrilled about me being in the picture. All my memories of him growing up are just filled with his constant bullying. He'd often be left in charge of me because he was studying locally and lived with our parents. But his version of babysitting was more like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. It got to the point where he'd steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one dropping me off at school. It was relentless. He didn't just stop at bullying me, he even started harming my pets. I have this old cat who's been with me for almost 22 years now. Chris tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. Chris was the classic golden child. My mom absolutely wanted a son more than a daughter, so Chris was always the priority. The bullying only got worse and creepier as we grew older. Our bathroom doors had this design where they could be unlocked from the outside with a long stick or key, in case they got locked by accident. Chris would use this to walk in on me while I was showering. My underwear would sometimes go missing, and I just knew it was him. He even started taking pictures of me while I was sleeping. One night, I woke up to find him pleasuring himself right next to me while I slept. I screamed, and of course my parents came running. But he didn't get in trouble. Instead, I got blamed for tempting him. I was 14 at the time, and he was 27. No one helped me, and he got bolder until he did something so traumatizing that I'm still in therapy for it. By the time I was 16, it became unbearable. I reached out to my older half-brother Sam, who's now 48. He's the son of my biological father's first wife. I asked if I could come live with him and his wife Sandy for the last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was happening, he confronted my mom. She didn't care, and just told him to take me as long as he didn't ask her for money. So, that was that. My brother and his wife legally became my guardians, and they took me in along with my cat and our old family dog. I didn't trust leaving any living creature around Chris. My parents never checked in on me. My father's side of the extended family knew what happened, and they all came together to ensure I could finish school and go to college. Thanks to them, including Sam's mom and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's degrees without any student debt, and I now work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, Sandy, and their 2 kids. I pay a small amount for rent, even though neither Sam nor Sandy expected me to pay anything. It's the least I can do for the 2 people who've taken care of me for 13 years. For those wondering why I haven't moved out, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own place. Things seemed to be going okay until recently, when my mom messaged me out of the blue. She hadn't reached out since I was 18, when she told me she no longer had any responsibility towards me. Her message was oddly friendly, saying she missed me and asking how I was doing. It felt a bit creepy, but I decided to be nice and told her about what I'd been up to since leaving her care. She seemed really interested, especially since she knew I was a nurse, but not much else. Then she started asking about my salary. I didn't tell her any specifics, just that it was enough to cover the bills. She then started talking about Chris and how he's barely making any money because of his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree and kept jumping from one career to another. Now, he's working in my stepdad's used car business as a salesman, but most of his pay is going towards his substantial student debt. I told my mom I was sorry Chris was having a hard time and wished him luck. That's when she finally revealed what she wanted. She told me I needed to pay off Chris's student debt so he could start making the money he deserves as the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised because I'm usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and showed him my mom's text messages. I don't think I've ever seen him this angry. He told me to block my mom, stepdad, and Chris if I hadn't done so already. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss and asked for the next 2 days off, which gave me a 4-day weekend in total. My boss was super understanding and told me to take it easy and let her know if she could help. The next day, things took a turn for the worse. my mom and Chris showed up at Sam's house to talk to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mom spent the whole time outside screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was prowling around the house trying to find an unlocked window or door. Luckily, all the windows have safety bars, and the only other doors are in the closed garage and the backyard, both of which were locked. Just in case, I locked the garage door too. Chris saw me through one of the windows and hurled some pretty nasty insults my way, basically saying they should have abandoned me when I was a baby. He even pounded on one window so hard that he cracked the glass. Eventually, he gave up and went back to the front door, trying to kick it down. I wasn't too worried because it's a security door, but still, I was totally freaked out between all the yelling, threats, pleading, and insults. Then I finally heard Sam shout at them to get lost. I could only see from the window, but Sam pretty much yanked both of them off the porch. They got to a point where I couldn't hear anymore, but I saw my mom and Chris looking pale and terrified before they bolted to their car and sped off way over the legal limit. Sam came back inside shortly after and immediately went into full Big Brother mode, asking me if I was okay, saying he was sorry, and hugging me tight. Sandy showed up almost right away, looking like she was ready to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam had threatened Chris with pressing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My stepdad, who's also my brother's dad, weird, I know, said he'd testify against his own son. That seemed to be enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mom. In the past 3 days, she hasn't stopped texting or calling from various numbers. She's even rallied a group of people, supposedly from my maternal side of the family, to harass me for money, saying it should legally be hers since she's my mom, and claims it's my late father's missed child support. Sam's been awesome, helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order against my mom. I plan to take my stepdad up on his offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I forgive him for not stopping his son sooner, but I appreciate that he's at least trying now. Chris did something to a relative of his dad's, and since then, they've had a major fallout. I took my boss's offer for some vacation time, but now my vacation days are getting eaten up by this mess. My therapist might need a therapist after dealing with me, but thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Update. Didn't think I'd be making an update so soon, but my mom is relentless. To everyone who gave me advice earlier, thank you so much. It really helps to have people show kindness during tough times. I followed the advice to freeze my credit, and am getting a new phone for personal use, but I'll have to keep my old phone for work a bit longer. Now, for the latest, we're pushing forward with pressing charges, and might even go for a civil lawsuit for the 2 years of child support my mom owes. We're not sure about our chances yet, but my brother wants to go scorched earth. As for my mom, she's started a new campaign, posting about me falsely accusing Chris of SA and calling me a temptress who's been trying to sleep with my stepbrother. A few relatives, who I just found out are my aunts, joined in, claiming they were witnesses. I've never even met these women. My stepfather actually commented on her posts, saying she was lying and accusing his own son of being a pedo. That's how I found out what caused the big fallout between them. Apparently, Chris went after one of my stepdad's nieces. I'm not sure of her age, but she's around my age, or maybe younger. Lots of my biological father's relatives have also taken to social media to call out my mom, saying she always claimed to be an orphan with no family, yet now she has 3 sisters. It's a mess, but I'm just watching for now while being a stay-at-home aunt. My nephews love it since we go out for crazy shenanigans after they finish their homework. My boss has helped with some paperwork for a leave of absence, so I should be off for about 6 weeks. After that, I'll mostly be working from home for a while. It's not the greatest update, and honestly, things aren't fun, but at least I get to spend time with the kiddos. Oh, and no, my mom isn't likely sleeping with my stepbrother. Some people mentioned this, but my mom always wanted a son. She was disappointed because I was born a girl. She treats my brother like her real son and truly loves him as a mother. She made sure to tell me how disappointing it was for her when I was born. Update 2. Hope this title is okay for the rules. I was recommended to post here, but wasn't sure where to start. My mom was widowed when I was 1. My biological father was much older than her, like 20+ years older. After he passed, she remarried her hometown sweetheart and adopted his 17-year-old son. My dad was American, mom is Colombian, and I was born in the US. We moved back to Colombia for a few years and then returned to the US when I was 4. My whole life, my mom constantly complained about me being a girl. She'd say things like, "If you were a boy, maybe we could have gotten more from your father," or "Girls are so useless." I was just the problem child to her. She took my inheritance and spent most of it on things for my stepbrother. Whenever she had guests, she'd introduce me and joke about how I ruined her body and wasn't even worth it since I was a girl. Most of her friends thought I had some kind of mental illness because of her lies about me being mentally behind. During holidays, I'd be left behind with a sitter because I was too much of a problem child and would ruin things for my sweet brother. We only have one family picture from when I was 5. If I bought anything nice with my money, my mom would take it from me, saying I wasn't attractive or worthy enough to have nice things. She had no intention of letting me go to college, and the worst part is she never protected me. My stepbrother is a predator. At first, he just bullied me, stealing my food and locking me in dark places. When I hit puberty, it got worse. He'd walk in on me when I was showering, even if I locked the door, steal my underwear, watch me sleep, and he even SA'd me when I was 16 and he was 29. So, the whole mess started when my mom blamed me for tempting her poor, sweet boy. Thankfully, my biological half-brother and his amazing wife stepped in when I was 16 and took me under their wing. They finished raising me and even helped me get through college, with a lot of support from my paternal family. Even my dad's first wife chipped in, and honestly, she's been more of a mother to me than my own mom ever was. Fast forward to now, I'm 29, rocking a good career as a nurse practitioner, and saving up to buy my first home. When my mom found out about my savings, she started demanding that I give her my money because, in her twisted logic, my money should be hers since she's my mom. She didn't stop there. She also insisted that I pay off my abusive stepbrother's student loans. Yeah, right. Since I refused to give in, she's taken to the internet, accusing me of being a temptress trying to ruin her son's life, and claiming I owe her for all the care and love she gave me over the years. She even roped in some women who supposedly are my aunts, but I've never met any of my maternal family. Growing up, I always thought my mom was an orphan, but now, surprise, I suddenly have 3 aunts who think I'm a horrible person. So here's an update. This might be my last one about my mom and stepbrother since we're gearing up for some legal battles. But I've finally got a good laugh. I haven't talked much about my biological father in my previous posts. He died when I was just 1 year old, so I never really knew him. I have this one picture of him holding me as a baby, and that's about it. Most of what I know comes from stories his family told me. Apparently, he was pretty well off and had carefully planned his will. He left me enough that, if I was smart with my money, I could live comfortably. Neither my half-brother Sam nor I knew about this inheritance. My dad's estate was supposed to go to me, but my mom wasted a lot of it on her precious stepson Chris, who made my life a living hell growing up. Her advice was always, daughters don't need inheritance, just marry a wealthy old man like I did. Recently, since my mom and Chris have been harassing me, we went to my dad's lawyer to get some documents we needed for the lawsuit. The lawyer, an older man who kind of looks like my dad, was super sweet. He and his wife greeted me with hugs and told me how happy they were to finally meet me. While catching up, we discovered that my mom had been faking receipts to siphon money from my trust fund. Some of it was even from the time I was under Sam's guardianship, and she wasn't even the executor of my trust. She had been submitting fake receipts for my supposed medical school expenses. I graduated in 2021, by the way. So, now she's in big trouble for fraud. The lawyer said we can't just handle this in civil court. He had to contact the IRS and the police. She's been using my social security number for stuff she shouldn't. Shout out to the people who advised me to freeze my credit. You guys saved me big time. I probably won't be able to post updates for a while since I'm going to be super busy with all this legal stuff. I'm mentally exhausted from everything that's happened. Honestly, if she had just left me alone, I wouldn't have even known about the trust. It's set up so I would take control upon getting married or graduating from college, and I hadn't sent the paperwork to take control because I didn't know it existed. She could have kept milking it dry if she hadn't started bothering me. Now I'm in the process of reclaiming what's left of my trust. There's still a good amount, enough to buy a house or condo if I combine it with my savings, and I'd still have some left to invest or do other things. But I might hold off on buying anything for a while since my mom still has my social security number. Update 4. Hey Reddit, this is more of a personal rant than a full-on update. Things are just starting on the legal side, so I can't share much. I just came home from dealing with my mom harassing me at a bar. What a night. For some background, my mom is a greedy liar who let her stepson Chris, who's 13 years older than me, abuse me since I was a little kid. The abuse started off physical and then turned into sexual abuse when I was 14 until I was 16. Now she wants me to clear his student debt and has been leeching off my biological father's inheritance. Last night, I decided to go out with some girlfriends for a night out. My half-brother Sam and his wife Sandy had been pushing me to have some fun. We went to a local bar, and I mostly stuck to a stool by the bar because I'm a massive introvert. I was just drinking and chatting with the bartender in passing when my good mood was shattered. I saw my mom walk in. Thank God she was alone. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, tried to hug me, and started crying, saying how much she missed me and how different I looked. I tried hard to get away from her, but she started causing a scene, begging for us to reconcile, and saying she was sorry for whatever misunderstanding happened. She even claimed that my stepbrother and she loved me and want me to live with them. It was loud and embarrassing. People were looking at me. Some even seemed to feel sorry for her, and a few were encouraging me to hug her back. It was a nightmare. Man, it was so embarrassing and just plain wrong. I totally lost it and told her to leave me alone, then stormed out. That actually made things worse, because she started following me around with a couple of random people, calling me all sorts of names, and saying I was a terrible daughter. She was just swearing like crazy. Chris, who really does care for me and wants us to be a family again, even though he said he found me so beautiful he couldn't help himself when he did those horrible things to me. She's twisted. When he made love to me, I was a kid, only 11, and he was nearly 30. I just started crying and screaming at her to go away and leave me alone. Thank God one of my more sober friends, Sam, called, and he came over super fast. He scared my mom off and took me home. I'm now 100% sure I don't want to go out anymore. For those wondering why I never called the cops, I did, since I was 11. I reported the abuse and even what he did to me at 16. They took his side. I don't trust the cops at all. I feel like they don't care about sexual assault victims. I'm just writing this to let it all out since my therapist isn't available. And Reddit seems like the next best thing. So, update 5. Hey, it's been a bit. Sorry for the radio silence. Some folks were asking for updates, but things had been pretty quiet until this weekend, so I had nothing to post. For a quick recap, my mom has always favored my stepbrother Chris, who abused me from ages 11 to 16. I recently moved away after the worst attack, but my mom and Chris have been tracking me down and harassing me. I'm in a legal battle to recover my dad's stolen inheritance and deal with other issues. This weekend, my mom decided to confront me at work. I work from home doing clerical work for a clinic where I'm a nurse practitioner. This arrangement started when the situation with my mom and Chris began. Now that I can't work from home anymore, I'm back at the clinic seeing patients. Saturday was quiet, but on Sunday, I noticed someone with my mom's unique first name, but a different last name. I assumed it was someone else because of the large Latino community where I live. I was born in the U.S. to an American dad, but my family is Colombian. But lo and behold, it was my mother using a fake last name. When I saw her, I immediately called my boss, who knows about the situation. My boss asked her to leave, which is allowed since she was there for a general checkup and not an emergency. My mom went on a rampage, demanding to be seen by me. My boss stood her ground and said she'd call the cops if my mom didn't leave. After some back and forth, my mom tossed a letter at my boss and stormed off, even pushing another woman who was coming in. My boss handed me the letter and said she'd make sure I wouldn't have to see any patients with my mom's name. I took a break and read the letter, mostly to see if it could be useful in my legal fight. Here's a translation to the best of my ability. My lovely daughter, it hurts me so much that you refuse to speak to me. I love you so much, and all I want is to recover the years we've lost. I only have you left from your father, whom I loved dearly. I know there are a lot of misunderstandings with Chris. He loves you so much too, and I wish you would give him a chance to prove it. He always talked about how beautiful you are, and how much he wished you two could spend more time together. He truly adores you, and I wish you would consider his feelings more. He even asked me to convince you to marry him, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Your stepfather and I are probably divorcing, and this will be the perfect solution so Chris, you, and I can stay a family. He keeps talking about how much he wants to raise your and his baby together. Let me know when you want to go shopping for wedding dresses. I love you, my darling. Mom. Adding some personal notes here. I can't get pregnant because of the medical complications from Chris' attack. My mom and Chris know this, and the cops do too. They ruled the whole thing as consensual sex, Because I was 16, the legal age of consent, so nothing was done. I showed the letter to my lawyer, and he added it to the evidence for our legal fight. Still no court date, and the cops don't consider my case serious enough for an emergency order. Thankfully, one officer is taking it seriously and is amazing, but most don't seem to care or are too busy. Update: it's only been 3 days, so it feels dumb to make a new post. Chris has been arrested for kidnapping a 2-year-old girl, his cousin's daughter. The baby was recovered safe and unharmed, thank God. Who knows what he wanted to do to her? If I hear more details, I'll update. I'm trying to use this to get a temporary restraining order.